The Omniologists Collective is a public forum group aimed at curating communication, perspectives, and progress. Recorded at our studio in Montclair, New Jersey, we're focused on bringing the local community together to discuss topics that are important to us. You can access our group and live streams through Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Omniologistscollective.
So today I'm here with our friend Kevin. Chris is here. He's doing some stuff. Would you like to introduce yourself, say a little bit about you,
Sure.
your interests, whatever you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Lindahl. I'm involved in politics and definitely into spirituality and current events. And I saw this group, and this seems like a real intellectual group, problem-solving group, and open-minded about different solutions to current event problems and thinking outside the box. I really like that too. So
Nice.
I was drawn to it. And it's good to get outside, actually meet people in person instead of just chatting online. So.
How about, okay, so Chris, you were here for the first episode. Do you want to just quickly reiterate where we are maybe, or about yourself, obviously?
Sure. My name's Chris. I consider myself a political artist, a political music artist maybe. I'm not really sure. But, this event is being held at my studio in Montclair, where I try to facilitate all types of musical and artistic situations for the sake of community building, positive stuff, resistance,
Awesome.
negative things, whatever, so that's it.
Great.
Yeah.
And again, my name is Barbara. I guess I kind of run the group, or I started the group a while ago, simply because, I think this was during time of politics, recent politics, and I really felt one of the main things we need to do is start shifting the narrative that's being given to us, because I was getting very, very angry and upset, and this is kind of my way of trying to find a solution, and I'm really happy that I have found a lot of people that are willing to kind of start something different. So I'm also an artist, and yeah, we're going to be talking about some stuff. Again, we made kind of like a list of topics that maybe like last time we can get through, but who knows? But it does give us a place to start. So,
Right.
Anything else? Oh, so I guess we're going to get started. I should move this. So speaking of politics, this idea of nihilism, cynicism, the end times of what, perhaps. So, how do you guys feel about the current culture of both the outer world reality, maybe the internet reality, depending on how much you guys feel involved in it currently?
Well, I definitely think Tide Pods is mocking that behavior. Do you have the Tide Pods meme?
Do you know about, are you up on memes and stuff?
Not that particular one.
Okay.
Tide, is a company that sells detergent and clothes, and there's that product they make called the Tide Pod, which is a blue thing, and it's like a mainstream sort of joke that you bite into it and eat it, but that's gonna make you sick and maybe kill you.
Yeah.
So, a couple people on the internet have been doing it for the sake of views.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's, to me, that is definitely a comment on that sort of nihilistic behavior in a way, where it's people are so desperate for power grabs and attention, and their nihilistic behavior has taken such a angle, that they're willing to even do extreme things that are just clearly going to put you through some sort of negative experience. And,
Yeah.
In my viewing of situations like that, I see people who are often, either very privileged and know they can go to the doctor, or people who are so desperate for the views for the sake of social capital that they'll do it.
Yeah.
And that's really a really big part of, I think, a real negative aspect of our nihilistic culture, where it's whatever, anything goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always been the case to want fame. I mean, I used to think, oh man, or think about it. Once you get fame, or once you get power, or once you get to a certain position, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
And my generation was just as guilty of that. I think with the internet, it's easier to think maybe you can get that shortcut to fame, or you can get the people to notice you. But it definitely seems like an effect of separation, because before I had my spiritual awakening, I didn't see the interconnectedness of everything. So you have to get to a certain goal in the future to be happy, or maybe reach a certain level of fame, or have a certain amount of influence. Even used for good intentions, it was almost like I wasn't respecting the journey.
Yeah.
I was only respecting once, and then I thought about it. If your whole life you're planning on something and you get to that goal, and you are actually, let's say best case scenario, you are actually happy when you reach it, do you want to look back at the entire journey as a waste up until you finally did reach the goal? No. You want your whole full spectrum of life to be to matter, even the journey to your goal.
That is so deep.
Yeah.
Well, that aspect of it, the idea.
But that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
And there goes nihilism. It's like people don't want to experience the pain that living causes.
Yeah.
I think it's like the weight. It's the weight of having to make a good narrative. In a time where we're exposed to so many existentially, physically, mind-bendingly, unbelievable narratives of people who have done, like, crazy things, and then, like, the first experience you have as a child is being exposed to great leaders and people who have done tremendous things, and then that maybe creates an existential, nihilistic situation. Because, like, how can I create a narrative of myself in the face of, like, all of these great names and people,
I think the internet definitely put something in the mix.
That
because
exacerbated
the fact, so if the internet wasn't really around, or social media, then so many people I think get their aspirations from these idealistic things from the internet, whether it's success or Instagram models, I don't know, that kind of idea of seeking perfection through a made up reality.
And they're not seeing the work that goes in before it. It's like these people, some of these people did not just, some did, but some did not just become famous overnight. And somebody who comes up with the great speech and the great inspirational motivation, it may have taken years for them to get to that realization through trial and error. We're not seeing the trial and error. And so the internet, this nihilism, as you guys talk about, it's almost like the climax without the lead up. It's just as if all this stuff is just coming out of nowhere.
All right, instant gratification generation. Wow, that's so cheesy, but also known as the microwave generation.
Right.
Is this quickness to things. So if anything seems to be...
It generates more hits.
I think that's also why this idea of the sheep or the basic person has come around, because it's easier to fulfill a narrative of the general populace that fit it, like the ideal whatever you may be, whoever you are. But... It's the perpetuation of it. It's easy to fulfill.
Following what?
But is it?
No, right. So
that's the problem.
So I'm thinking about.
But if you're privileged,
how many of our behaviors do we have because someone else told us we had them before we noticed them?
Right.
Okay.
True.
So you're just so interested in instant gratification or whatever, or is it just like a human, or is it just a natural trait to constantly want to chase the gratification? Is it now just very easily accessible to you and you have the knowledge to access it?
Yeah.
So is it just a guilt-tripping narrative of because you get this and you enjoy this so much,
I think patterns are true, but so is people trying to achieve fame and glory and recognition. Both those things are both simultaneously true.
Yeah.
Right. So as humans, we try to recognize things based on patterns.
Yeah.
So does it fit into this mold? Does it fit into this narrative? You look at the liberal and conservative paradigm, or you look at nationalism, xenophobia versus globalism.
It's that black-white, the binary.
It's the polarity consciousness. And what I've come to realize more recently, because I definitely fell into this polarity consciousness, is that someone can have a sliver of truth and not have the entirety of truth. It's not necessarily that that person is lying or wrong about the little box they're talking about.
Yeah.
They may be 100% right about that little area, but it's such a narrow area.
Yes.
They're not, how does it get like this? How did things get the way they are? I mean, you talk about,
Okay, it's public.
you talk about, sometimes you'll see people in the political spectrum on the right will say, well, these people are poor because they're not trying, or they're not motivated, and yet they won't look at the generational poverty. 66% of people born poor stay poor their entire lives. And people who had great-grandparents that were poor are more likely to be poor themselves. It's not a thing that it has a concrete thing that there's no escape from, but
Right.
it shows you that you have to look at some of these peripheral
Yeah, of
issues.
course.
And I think when we pattern things into these boxes, we close ourselves off from, like you were saying, new ideas, new possibilities, and we try to fit everything in the box. We walk down the street, who shops at Macy's, who shops at Macy's,
Yeah.
who shops at Kmart, and we might even peg it right. That's
Maybe
the
it
danger.
makes us feel superior to uncover the patterns in nature of
Yeah.
humanity. It makes us feel intelligent that, oh, I can totally figure out what that type of person is. That's
Right.
godlike almost
And
to
do
be
you
able to
think
understand
being able
that.
to view the patterns of nature depends on the lens of which you have, right? Like that's
Oh,
why
yeah,
like
of course.
other people can illuminate truths to us that we can't even see because they can see them through their lens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And even
that's very
then, so
true.
we can't even see it through their lens,
Mhm.
right? One thing I think about is the truth is always expanding,
Yes.
right? Not defining, it's expanding. Like, that's how I know it's the truth. Like, it's taking something I believe in and making it, like, bigger or wider or,
Yeah.
like, more nuanced, you know?
You're always
not,
adding
not
on to
like
your
this.
knowledge. Yeah.
Right.
You're
It's
never taking away. You're just changing.
right. Words create the idea that you're doing this because words are, like, the archetype of the larger thing, you
Mhm.
know? So, like, words inherently, I think, try to make everything compact to make precise communication, which makes sense.
Yes.
But then there becomes a danger when you're using words against each other because, like, no situation is exactly like a word. No situation
the
is
word?
totally precise.
Or is it the
Exactly.
idea?
Right.
The idea of the
concept
emotion is
that's-
much more diverse and has much of a fuller spectrum than the word itself.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because then what happens when the con artist is dealing out truth and he doesn't realize it. So for example, I didn't believe that crystals worked, a few years ago, and then I started meditating. And everything has a vibration. If you want to look at it from a scientific point of view, molecules are vibrating in everything.
Everything is a sine wave created by vibration.
Exactly, and that's why
Everything.
steel looks different than wood, and wood looks different
Yep.
than grass, because they're vibrating in a different. So some of these crystals are
I don't want to
actually
talk about waves, so I love
stones
waves.
that.
Waves are great. I love thinking about waves.
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
But some of these
yeah.
crystals are actually stones that have been overheated or under tremendous pressure
Yeah.
from rockets, so their molecules are closer together, and that's why they vibrate. And so, I've been talking to people who've been doing some of this meditation. For some reason, it's been over the last 3 or 4 years at Ferry Den in New York City, where people are for the first time going into crystal shops,
Yeah.
and this is what the owner of the shop told me. And instead of saying, I want this as jewelry, or I want this for its aesthetic value, or to trade online,
Yeah.
or just as a piece in the living room, they're actually finally doing energy work with it. Where
Yeah.
3 years ago, this girl would have a meditation crystal healing class, and
Yeah.
no one would come
Huh.
because no one believed in it.
True.
But
Right.
here's the flip side of that. There's a place, I won't name the place because it's too close, but it's not the one you went to. The one you went to is authentic. Where I walked into the competition of that one, and I asked the guy about crystals, and the guy goes, well, some say, the owner goes, some say you put it in your pocket, it does this, or you put it in your hand, it does that, who knows? And I'm like, and I told Rocky at Rocky's Crystals, which is the real deal, that he doesn't realize that what he's selling is not a fraud. So in other words,
Yeah, right.
They don't
he
even understand
thinks
his own-
he's just kind of
Selling
tricking
rocks.
people
Right.
into believing this, when in
Yeah.
reality this stuff really does work. I said to Rocky, I said, when this guy gets his life review, boy, is he going to be surprised.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
You know what
Well,
I'm
that's-
saying? Like, what happens when someone thinks they're ripping you off, but they're actually not, because they can't see that fuller
Right.
truth. So words can have such an overlapping effect.
I think we're so obsessed. I think for some reason, maybe it's because we have such a deeper connection to this like other reality, which is like
The internet?
The internet, I talk about that so much, but it is like literally a part of our reality.
Yeah.
That I think that we lose the connection we originally have to our material world. So that's
Right.
why people don't even want to consider crystals or anything like
Right.
that, because it just doesn't.
That's my fear of
You
the
know?
new generation coming up.
Yeah.
Like, my fear is, like, so I'm thinking about this a lot because I'm getting older now, and I think as you get older, you have to start thinking about passing on knowledge, right? And so, like, you know, I don't have kids or anything, so I'm not passing on knowledge to my kids right now, you know?
Right.
But I am still, I think, thinking about, maybe for a genetic reason, about passing on knowledge. I'm probably thinking about it. So I'm thinking about younger kids and how they're growing up in the technological age, and how they are probably going to spend less time just, you know, philanthropically experimenting in nature.
So
Yeah.
true.
Right.
I witnessed that a lot with them.
Instead, they're going to go into nature with a specific spot from Google Maps where everyone's driving to. You
Yeah.
know, like,
It's
I think
slow
the epitome
progression.
of privilege in our time is like being able to go from
It's
the
cutting out
blanket
the
on your bed,
exploration.
right? The blanket from your bed to your car to the destination, to the
That is so
destination to
true,
the car,
yeah.
back to
Yeah.
the blanket. You know, like
Oh my
that.
God, that's absolutely what's happening.
Right, and I think that risk factor, one is what makes me an anarchistic thinker, because it is like that in between adventure has given my life value.
Yes.
Right, and usually those moments are very chaotic and sometimes difficult, but ultimately have been the most rewarding, right?
When you go off the path.
When you go off the path, right? So, and now that the idea of like off the path is just not there.
Yeah.
Right? Before, it was used as a way to make people like strive for extreme individualism, to get them
Yeah.
to buy products that they thought represented their psychology.
I hate
Now
that. The
that's changing.
exploitation of it.
Yeah.
Right,
Ah.
and that's how I'm always thinking about how, like, before there was a sliver of truth,
Mm.
and that was it, right? That there's still that slight promotion of being the individual,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's like for the wrong reasons, someone will find the answer in that promotion,
Right.
you know. But now it's
They
like
use truth for the wrong reasons.
always,
Yeah.
right? So, but now in this scenario, the pathways to direct gratification are so precise and so instant.
Yeah.
Right? It's not even, it's like, it's no one's fault that they want to pursue their gratifications instantly. I think that's just like,
But here's the problem. What if the gold is far away? What if the ultimate, the castle you're supposed to be at is over the mountain, and you have to go over the mountain to get there?
Yeah.
Like, I went to Jersey City the other day, dude, and I saw everyone there was from Jersey City. I remember when I was younger, you would see people from Newark or Bloomfield or Clifton
Right.
going
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
bars in Jersey City. And you still see
Interesting.
that in New York.
Yeah.
Now everyone seems to be local. It's almost as if
wow.
people are doing, just saying, you know what, this place is right outside my door. It's the closest place.
Yeah.
create more bubbles.
Yeah, it's like they're not
Oh.
going more than 5 miles away from their house.
Oh my god.
And it's also
Yeah.
okay. People might start hating me on this because this is a great segue into this the idea of gentrification
Yeah.
and how I saw something the other day on Facebook about some place that opened up a cat cafe, I think in Jersey City or maybe
Mhm.
somewhere, and
Yeah.
people were trying to shut it down because they believed it was gentrification, even though it was like a family owned. It wasn't like a big business.
Yeah.
Like, go do that in Walmart, no offense, because I think we need to take down, like, places like Walmart,
Yeah.
maybe. But, like, just
I
like,
think in
and
this
they
case-
they locked the cats in there. They couldn't feed them. It was so sad.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I
It
Yeah.
was,
think
like,
that's an
ridiculous. And they were dressed
example
up like,
Of a good
Yeah.
resistance pointed in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
So like I see why someone would be upset about that, because it's like, yo, what
It
if
does
they
make
need
sense.
real stuff? Or what if they put something really important to the
Right?
community out of business, and
Yes.
then they replace it with the cat cafe?
but it's
right?
always the way they go about it, which discredits, like, I don't think these things are thought through.
Never. No, it's
As much
right.
as the people that
Resistance right now is extremely emotion based and fleeting.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
which is like so different from the past. Or no, I'm never gonna. I'm not. I didn't live in the past resistances, so I can't say for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think effective resistance in our time must be planned, strategic, and meaningful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But the issue for me in all of these like sort of dissections is, there is no narrative of the future that people are tapped into that they're interested in. You know, or
Yeah.
in which they would want to plan to move or shake things in a direction. And that's why, we were once in the Brave New World,
Mm.
right, where we were sedated by our interests. And now we're going to be sedated by fear and anxiety that's promoted at us through all of our channels, which is 1984.
Yeah, we will be robots one day.
I mean, I don't know.
Performing
This is
actions.
not new. You know what's new about it is how intense it's become, but
Right.
it has always been
Yeah.
here. I remember fear was played on people when I was a kid, and that people would fall into pattern issues like this, and there was some gentrification, but now it seems like everything is speeding up. There's more gentrification than there's ever
Yeah.
been. The internet is just adding kind of like lighter fluid on the fire.
Yeah.
And I think, that's my point, is what if we really find us, if we're constantly going, all right, this is a waste of time, that's a waste of time. Look, when there's a blizzard and we're having a cup of hot cocoa on the couch and we're safe, I'm not against comfort per se.
No,
Yeah.
never.
But when at some point it becomes a fork in the road where you have to either choose comfort or the revolutionary excitement,
Yeah.
something
Right.
that's going to really add meaning to your life. When that fork comes,
Right.
if you choose comfort, you're going to choose the most easy, convenient
Yeah.
thing. And
Right.
if I feel like the real gold is off the path, spiritually, and like you doing this.
Well, that's the thing. Is
Right.
like I said before, though, I think thinking this way does taking in some pain, because the empathy causes you to feel for like all these situations that you have. Like, I don't even know how I can start. Like, I want to. That's the thing. I have to think of a way how to like help. Like, this is what I was saying.
Right.
This is what this group is for. But I mean,
Right.
I see people out in the cold. Like, we should like. How do we really address these things? And that causes like pain to some degree.
Yeah.
And a lot of people know that, and that's why they choose to ignore it. It's
Yeah.
like that
Well, to me,
ignorance is bliss thing.
Yeah,
And that's
me, the-
simply what that is.
that does result in that because
And I
when they're
understand-
blocking everything out.
That's why I can't be too mad at people, because at some point, I mean, I think we all experienced at some point feeling that way.
To me, the whole issue in that situation is the narratives of the subordinate versus the individual. Like,
Yes.
so many things in society teach you to become subordinate. Your job, your religion,
Oh,
right?
is Lex watching? Sup, Lex? You're like our #1 fan. If you have stuff to say, please. You always have such good insight.
True.
You rock.
But yeah, so like your society, your job, family hierarchies that you were mentioning, or like before the live stream. All of these things are creating narratives of subjugation.
Yeah.
Very few in society create narratives of self-empowered individualism. So that's why I think people become extremely poor. Right,
Because of course, that's a threat
right.
to the
Well,
powers that be.
no, it's because when you're in a situation where you need to rise to power, you cannot be the subordinate.
Exactly.
And those who are good at becoming the subordinate and rising to the top are usually manipulating. Or they have wealth or something else, or some other resource which
Or
allows them
connections,
connections or intelligence or what. Everyone has their own thing or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's the will to move that is necessary. But when all the narratives around you, especially when you're poor, because every narrative is making people hate you. Like, the other thing that could help you is other people, like making you feel good about yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then it's like when everyone is hating on the poor because that's everyone's greatest fear,
Mm-hmm.
even they start to hate themselves, I think, and then they just like go into a
Also,
spiral.
yeah, I mean, if your whole life, let's say you're the independent, you're the libertarian conservative, psychologically, if your entire life you're pointing at the poor people as it's them, it's all their fault. It's not these
Yeah.
societal conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I had hard times, I never judged people like that because I thought it was the macroeconomic condition, the government
Yeah.
policies. But these people, psychologically, it's devastating because they would blame a person for being poor, and then when they hit hard times themselves,
Well,
they
it gives
blame
them
themselves.
something to
Right.
direct
Yeah.
their anger at, which I
Yes.
feel like for a lot of humans, or a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people that I know need that sometimes, but it's not right. Like, it's not helpful.
Well, I think that's base level psychologically. I think everyone does it
exactly.
on a base level psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
I
It helps them to define their own emotions when they have something to be mad. Like, the truth lies in the opposite.
It's
so
the
if they can
pattern thing
define,
again, though.
yeah.
They define themselves by defining a pattern, a group, another group outside
Yes.
of themselves.
Yes.
But the problem is this creative spirit that comes through. like with what you did here, starting this up took creativity and took energy to make this happen.
Yeah.
When we're in a pattern state, we're basically like on the assembly line of life. We're
Yeah.
duplicating what we've done before. The problem with it is that creative energy that gets us to open up to knowledge. What if some of knowledge is outside of ourselves? What if our brains are
Exactly.
like receivers
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than promoters? When we open up to that, well, then people will say, well, then how are we doing it ourselves? Because we have to take the first step.
Right.
To match that energy, we have to be willing to break out of our comfort zone and take a risk and try something new. If everything is patterns, which it seems like in human psychology, as you said, it is,
Yeah.
then we're just by default doing the same thing at the job every day. Socially, we're going back to the same places. We're talking to the same people.
Do you
Right.
think maybe that's why people are so obsessed with death? Because they believe that life is just this, like...
It relieves them of the pattern. I think life is
Yeah.
not. I sort of disagree, but I kind of agree.
Yeah.
I do believe that certain powers lead to power, or
Yeah.
certain patterns lead to power, right? And that's why people pursue the patterns, right? Like someone tries to lift weights to be strong,
Yes.
right? The pattern of lifting weights makes me strong.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, but I think the narrative of patterns itself, as needing patterns,
Yeah.
right, is not something for everyone.
But that's the thing, because we
Right.
change.
Right, like
Like
and-
lifting weights is great when you start lifting weights. You've never done it and you're doing a new exercise. But if you continue to do that same exact exercise for more than 28 days, it starts to lose its effect. So now you switch to legs
Yeah.
or you switch to a different muscle and then you go back. By switching it up,
right.
it keeps you getting stronger and
Like, I
stronger.
don't see
Okay.
anybody looking to fulfill the aspects that they that they see in other people that they admire, or not that they,
Yeah.
but like their full. Like no one thinks about what is my full potential as a person. What do I want to be?
Because there's no narrative of their future.
And that's the thing.
like
Where
the
can we
utmost
start
thing.
building?
Who are you
Right.
if without any person's
Yes.
influence?
So true.
Right.
I know so
liberal or
many people.
conservative. What did you want to do before you heard any news story on the news when you were 7? What
Right.
was it that you dreamed about
Yeah.
with
Wow.
no outside influence whatsoever? To find that, you have to go to a place that may be very lonely, and it may have to
Yeah.
pass through fear to get there.
Mm.
But you will be isolated, and you'll be able to find your true self.
And that's the difference, because I think all these people, these groups of people that kind of just are the mass, I think find comfort in the groupthink and in the group kind
Yeah.
of identity. Because a lot of people that I've known in my life, it's so funny that you can realize that they're
Yeah.
only aspects of other people they surround themselves with. The other people create their narrative.
Yeah, I
And
think.
God forbid you ask them what their narrative is, and they have an existential crisis. They're like, oh my God.
Well,
and then they go crazy.
I think the
I'm just
groupthink
joking.
is the groupthink is like, I'm gonna try and visualize it for you, like a web at the bottom of the well. Okay, so like you experience trauma.
Yeah.
You have no other patterns. Like you're curiously like, okay, so everyone is born at the top of the well, and
Do you
go
need to
down
draw
the
this
well.
out?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You go down the well, right? Some people fall and they land in the web. Some people find the web, right? Some people don't even care about getting to the web, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But at the bottom of the well, there's a web, in which is the groupthink, right? And that groupthink is the safety net, which ensures you never actually reach the bottom.
Oh,
Right,
I
so-
love this.
So,
That's a great
so,
idea.
but that's a trap. It's a web,
Yeah, yeah.
and the spider cometh, right? Which
Yeah.
is which is the wealthy and the privileged or whatever, and then they manipulate you to get what they want.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
But you're safe because you're not in the well.
right? Because you're not at the bottom of the
But
well,
you're giving
and
up
you're
a lot.
safer, and then the manipulation is you're safer
Yeah.
than trying to be yourself and go back up and possibly fall. You know what I mean? And try and find yourself again. It's just better to be right here. You know.
But here's the thing: they're using a truth
yes,
to
that's the thing.
manipulate.
Yeah.
That's always
Because
the thing.
we would not want to be completely isolated
Mhm.
from
No.
each other and have no
Truth and
no
reality.
group. You know what I'm saying? We want to have. They did this experiment where people were stuck in a room where you couldn't. It was pitch black,
Yeah.
but there was no sound
No.
or any sensory
Wow. Yeah.
input whatsoever. So it wasn't just sight; it was sound either. And within 90 seconds, people were going insane. They had the longest
Oh.
anybody lasted was about like 110 seconds. That was it.
Wow.
Probably start hearing your own heartbeat. It's
Yeah,
like
it was
really,
just, it was,
yeah,
people would go crazy,
hallucinating.
so they need that input. I think the key is that I can relate to your truth is truth and your truth is truth, even if they don't match each other, because in your situation, what you went through, if a car rolls over your foot, and then a car comes up to you and a lady hands you flowers and then leaves, both are true. They don't have to match.
Right.
They just have to have happened to be true.
Oh.
And so when we do things in patterns, I have to say, wait a minute, Barbara's talking about the nice lady that came out of the car, and Chris is talking about the mean driver who drove over my foot. How do I get the nice lady and the mean driver to fit into this pattern? Well, sometimes things don't necessarily fit into a pattern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as a human being,
That's
and I'm
the
so
chaos.
guilty of it, we try to put everything into some kind of a
I
pattern.
think it's because we see our species, humans, as being so intelligent that we can bypass chaos. That we have organized our existence so much that we're so intelligent that
But
we
to
can
me, that's what greatness
lessen the
is.
chaos we experience. But that's not the truth, and that's why people lose track of like what they're doing because they expect their lives to be free of chaos
That's
if they
the
follow
amount-
these patterns. That's not necessarily
But
always. a
what
fact.
about good chaos? We always talk about
yeah.
bad
Ooh,
chaos,
yeah, I
but
love it.
what
I love
about
it.
good chaos? There can be chaos of thought, of ideas, of
The pursuit of the unknown?
Yes.
new inventions are technically chaotic until they become the norm.
Yeah.
So all new ideas, new laws, new policies. Look at the '60s, the civil rights.
Oh,
Now it's the norm, and now it's a good thing. But at that time, it was chaotic. So there is good chaos when sometimes when we try so hard to not have to go around the detour, we're avoiding the whole.
Well,
mix that
my
comes-
argument is that chaos in the moment is never good or bad.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
It's
just
a
chaos.
happening.
Yeah, it's a happening. Chaos is a happening.
Yeah,
A
we
necessary
pass
one.
judgment on it.
Right, and that's what makes me again an anarchist thinker, because chaos is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's never gonna be total control. There's never gonna be total pattern. Right? Chaos cometh. Right?
Yeah.
And so instead, create yourself as a vehicle of which to embrace chaos, and that's like to me true
Like
psychological
tame the
strength.
chaos.
Yeah.
Psychological strength is like when chaos comes, that's what empowers you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why I try to get people to be individual anarchist thinkers.
Have you ever heard that quote about like video games that like the more bosses you experience, it must mean you're getting closer to where you have to get.
Yeah.
Oh, I could see that.
The most
Yeah,
you have to pass through, so it's kind of
Right.
like
I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Great.
and too many people don't want to.
Well, think about it. It's the person who can drive through the hurricane is accomplishing a lot more than the person who can drive through the sunny, clear day.
Yeah.
If we're all going through this, if a lot of people are going through this depression of not knowing where they're going to be, what they're going to do, and you can see it on people's faces. There's
We're gonna talk about this in a moment. 'cause
A
that's
lot of
exactly
people-
that.
Yeah, I'm about to bring that up too.
a lot of people feel like they're struggling. Well, if
Love this flow.
you can take that negativity, if you can take the darkness and say, I'm going to use this to and I'm going to overcome it, then you are going to grow
Yeah.
Right.
from not letting that stop you. Because it's hitting everyone. Go into the grocery store and just look at the expression
David
on people's
Foster Wallace.
faces. Yeah.
That's what he's all about.
Yep.
But then again, that also, I think that it's easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I'd seen a video actually today of some YouTuber person that's very known for being very opinionated, and she's a female, and I think she was talking about how depressed people just have to get over it, and just stop it, and just start like being like exactly what you're saying, but kind of bypassing the fact that there's different severities.
Yeah.
that
And
situation.
different mental illness. Yeah, exactly. Every situation is different, so we
That
will.
criticism just comes from
Yeah.
privilege. That's all that is. That's all there is.
Yeah.
There's two things for me. Like, one is the anomaly of greatness, which is the overcoming of these chaotic situations, right? And some people think that that's how you're going to attain purpose in life, is
Mhm.
by overcoming chaotic to attain greatness. But I think they're totally situational. Not everyone goes through a situation of like extreme chaos and overcomes it. That's just the way it is. It's beyond meaning, right? But it does show what's amazing about it to us, I think, is an example of the it affirms the truth that there are no limitations. Like
Yeah.
when someone does something that is like extraordinary and beyond what is expected,
It just
right? the only thing that proves is that whatever limitation I had in my mind
It
about
pushes
that
it,
thing,
the narrative.
it expands it or
Yeah.
breaks it down, right?
Yeah.
And it's just about that feeling in itself, because what it does, it breaks through the window of limitation, you know? Which brings me to the second thing I want to talk about, which you mentioned, like the revolutionary feeling. So, feminism is going through like a certain movement right now, and there are a lot of things about it that I disagree with, but I don't openly talk about the things I disagree with. Like I am now, but only in an intellectual situation.
We're
you know?
underground, so that's okay.
Well, in an intellectual, generally positive way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I do have criticisms, but
Yeah,
I'm
so do
not.
I, yeah.
Even
I'm not
as a
trying to sit
female,
on
I
Facebook.
too have criticisms of feminism,
Right.
and I think that we should have a place to speak about these
Yeah.
things. So,
Yeah.
Totally, and I have a criticism of every single thing.
yeah,
We know
as
that's
you
the other
should,
thing.
you should always be questioning everything.
It's
Right.
analytical. You're
Right,
analyzing. Yeah.
right. So, but that's why I don't openly speak out negatively against it, right? Because they are experiencing a
Exactly,
revolutionary
yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
right? And even though it's irritating and they're failing, and like, but that's like part of the revolutionary
It's like-
situation, right?
yeah.
It's like you're accelerating through the issues that got you to the point of the situation, right?
We're
And that's what they're
literally
doing.
trying to redefine a metaphysical
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Right.
Like the
Well-
rights of a human being, or like the existence of a human being. It's so strange.
Well, I think the identity
That's
of
a
being a
lot.
woman.
That's a pressure.
The identity of being a woman is being challenged, and then so is the identity of being a
Let's
man.
be honest, by the president.
Yeah, well, by the government right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and it's used as a tool
Right.
to separate
They'll
us,
always
as
do that,
opposed
though.
to unite us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like in my experience, feminism was used to try and unite us a little bit better and get us closer to the people trying to divide us. Like that's
I think it's a different take on it. Was if the way it should be looked at, in my opinion, is that we want to get women to have the same opportunity and the same rights as men. And whenever we make these distinctions
Yeah.
of where you see that the president does, and you see some people on the other side, like Nancy Grace, maybe do in the opposite direction. It's taking away from the, I don't hear too many men come out and say they don't think a woman should get paid the same as men for doing the same job.
It's not that.
Yeah.
It's usually the denial of that idea even existing. It's not
Yeah.
so much they'll say, "Oh yeah, like I don't think it," or "I think it exists" or something. I feel like a lot of men are simply like, "That's made up. Show me the proof that the wage gap even exists." It's more
Right.
about that.
Well,
Right.
you could
And
As
show it
a
in the
woman,
statistics.
obviously,
You
not
could
just
show it in
that,
the
but it's the
statistics.
mainstream narrative
Yeah.
of women as the subjective or as the subordinate member in the family situation.
Yes.
Right, that in itself, I think, is a toxic narrative.
Well, that's what
Right.
I'm saying. I'm trying to redefine these very like
Right.
big things when
Right.
we're so sedated. People
Right.
are so, no offense to the world, but like we're kind of dumb.
Yeah.
With this?
Everyone is a dumb self.
Come on, we're eating Tide Pods. Like we're dumb.
Yeah, right.
We are
Right.
grown adults are eating Tide Pods, so we're dumb. All right, we are just accepting
Well, I said,
that.
why don't we bring out the math?
Yeah.
We bring out a paper, show
Yeah.
the statistics that women are making this amount compared to men
Yeah.
for doing the same job, and say let's try to fix this problem.
See,
I think the
you're
answer
talking
is-
earlier,
I think
though-
the answer is giving women access to having
Right.
more skills.
Okay, yes, because as a woman,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is that right now it's so annoying when all people quickly jump to is pay gap
Right.
as
right.
the buzzword for feminism, right? And
Right.
it bothers me because you know me on my opinion about the movement or whatever we want to call it is. I think the main thing is like we don't want to keep having the violence inflicted against. That's our main thing. Just treat us like humans that deserve to live
Yes.
because so many
Oh,
women get killed
Yes.
for
Oh.
being women
And that comes
for
from the
sexual
subordinate.
and like just so much violence is against
Right.
us
And
in disproportion. So that's like the main thing first. Then the pay, but right now pay gap and everything, and especially because it's like mostly privileged women get the bigger say in the feminist movement.
Right.
So like these white actresses and white
It all comes down to the
politicians.
subordination
Yes.
narrative. Right?
Well, you know
I'm
what?
like so
it's
heated when I'm
interesting
like
though
it now.
because the conservative side of the spectrum, and you almost sometimes have to know how to talk to. I'm not going to say the enemy, but your opponent.
You're not my opponent.
They
humans too.
believe part of their argument is that a person, and I don't buy into it because we know how the world is. A person got where they are by their own bootstraps, pulling them up over their own bootstraps.
Yes.
Okay, let's even pretend for a moment that even on that level, okay,
Yeah.
if that's true, then how you're born cannot be held against you. Because you don't have any bootstraps when you come out of the womb.
Yeah, true.
So if their argument is that, okay, this person was lazier and this person worked harder, then when you show them that this person, a woman or a person of color is not being given the same chance when they do put in the same effort,
Yeah.
then those reasonable conservatives have to say, wait a minute, this isn't by your own bootstraps. This is a system working against people. Now they won't be with us if someone actually is lazy.
Yeah.
And in that case, I feel like that person still should be a safety net for them. But if you're going to hold somebody back, if someone has just as good of an idea, if you have the recording of a woman coming up with an idea and then a man saying the same thing, and the woman gets ignored, and 5 minutes later the guy says virtually the same thing, and everybody's listening to him, show that to a conservative. Because they're going to have to say, wait a minute.
Right.
It isn't that the system is fixed. Why is she being ignored?
Yeah.
The reasonable ones. The ones in the middle.
The truth shuts down the narrative, right?
Yeah.
It just shuts it down, because you can even say whatever you want, but if the situation, like deconstructs the truth of the narrative prior, what can you do?
Can we also say that I think that the idea of success has changed as well?
Oh, interesting.
Like, I'm sorry, but I do think that right now the most well-known people or the most supported, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's definitely not someone who isn't like a celebrity somehow.
What is
It's
success?
idols. It's like we hold these people like idols before even like politics in some sense.
Yeah.
Like politics are only interesting because they entertain us right now, or they've been entertaining society. Not saying us.
Yeah.
But it's like a show, and that's the only way that people were really getting into it. It seemed like a high, oh my god, Bernie versus Trump versus.
Yeah.
It was like WrestleMania or something.
Yeah. It's like a Super Bowl.
It's super decorated,
There's been
which is so strange.
Entertainment value and everything.
Or does it have to be though?
No, I think because policy.
I think innately it does. But it
The
doesn't
problem is
have to.
where we are now, the mind frame we're in now. If we did a switch to, this is what a policy can actually do. When I talk to people who are not in the politics, I say, do you like potholes on the ground? Do you want cheaper
there you go,
groceries?
of
Do you want
course,
cheaper gas? Do you want to be able to work at a job where you're making more than 21 an hour? Do you want the opportunity to be able to pay less on your mortgage? You relate it to everyday things because government policies can affect the mortgage interest rate.
Right.
They can affect the
That's usually when people
opportunities.
start caring is when they feel it.
Exactly. So, but it's not
Why
being
am I
related.
paying more for this stupid thing? Oh, well, you kind of voted for the person that that said they're going to do it, but you also voted for them because.
But we're not talking about policies. We're talking about personalities. So
Yeah.
in the framework of personalities, something has to have entertainment value, right?
Yeah.
But
He's just saying he's watching.
Yeah, I'm just pressing play on this.
What's good, my friend?
if we get out of that paradigm, then what matters becomes not the, because if you have nothing to talk about, if you're really not going to, are we still recording?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm just making sure we have this live stream going. Keep talking.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, if we don't have, if our officials don't have anything to offer on a policy format, then everything becomes about whose emails and is this person
Right.
going to get indicted? Why? Because we're not talking about policy.
The actual philosophy of civilization, right? And that's the part that's lost from our narrative, right?
Yeah.
Because by removing the public from the philosophy of civilization, that's how
Yes.
you maintain control.
But
Yeah.
can we just see that the world really is that terrible? Because I've accepted it. I think that's
Yeah.
the problem. You have to really accept that these people are
It's not the
Cruel.
world. It's authority.
and that power is important to them.
It's not the
The
world.
authority, the
It's
authority.
authority,
Yeah.
right? It's always
Yeah.
authority that tells you whatever it is that's happening, right?
Yeah.
And the authority that tells you what's happening is even giving it to you in a negative way. It's already a problem.
The conversation, the whole framework of the conversation is
Yeah.
not what it. But I'm saying that jobs can be an interesting conversation.
Of course.
Yeah.
New jobs that we haven't developed, or manufacturing jobs,
Oh.
can be an interesting conversation. So we have to get the conversation back on
Yeah.
to policy when someone goes, I'm running for president. Ask them. If you go up to New Hampshire, or if you're on our Facebook page, ask them about policy.
Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, what a politician does in their personal life can affect a few people, maybe even a few hundred. But the
Yeah.
policy they pass affects millions.
Well, yeah,
Right,
obviously,
right.
that's the most important
That's the
part.
most important thing.
But at the same time, I'm sorry,
And we
thinking
gotta
about
make it
politics
sexy
makes
again.
me sad. But
For sure.
I was just about to say something about that. Crap. All right, keep talking until I remember.
But I was going to say that there's a fear barrier, or maybe better put, a hassle barrier.
Ah.
If you look at people who are succeeding, right,
Yeah.
they're not really having to work as hard as people who are trying to get to the point of that momentum of initial success.
Well, yeah, everyone's starting at different.
Everyone's
because
starting
everyone
at
has different, like obstacles and baggage.
But
and
I think
societal,
once you get
institutionalized stuff. So
past that obstacle, imagine yourself as the person who's giving a good speech. Like I had to speak before the mayor in my town on politics. The first time I had to do that, man, when the president of the tenants organization asked me to, I was like, oh my God, I got to speak before the mayor and a council. I said I'd never given a speech before the mayor and council before. This is not an easy thing to do, and I was like trying to weed my way out of it.
Yeah.
It's all word games.
And then once I did it, people were like clapping. I almost got a standing ovation. And then every week when I came back, I'm like, this is kind of fun.
Oh.
Okay, well, it got easier once I got past that initial fear barrier.
Right.
Right?
That's the thing.
And so anything we do, there is that barrier that we have to pass. And once we do it, we can duplicate.
Do you want to get more meta on this? Can we get
Yeah,
more meta?
yeah,
Can we
let's
talk
do it.
about this, like, unleashing of our inner power through confidence and meditation and that? Okay, so, like,
Yeah.
Totally.
okay, I'm a big believer only because I feel like I've had actual experiences with the idea of, like, manifestation.
Totally.
I don't know. But, like, it's happened to the point where I'm thinking, like,
This
what are
is
your
a-
ideas
this
of
is an
being
aspect
beyond
of that.
yourself? Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm surprised that this is even a thing.
Let me ask you this. Do you have more confidence about this room and this show than you did when it was just an idea before we
Okay.
were ever here? Once you made it a reality, it is now, you now know it's tangible.
So that's the thing, is the tangibility
Yeah.
of it, but I also think that's what drives people away, because it's people, I think that the higher people understand they're intimidated by the individual, because the individual creates the narrative. We created the Tide Pod meme.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, we create these, like, really big punches to the way culture moves now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simply for the pattern of liking something, attaching the value to it, a number
Yeah.
value. Like, why do we like things? Oh, because a lot of people like it. And you
Yeah.
know, usually it's because it's good, though. It has content to it. Or
Okay.
whatever it is. You're enjoying it for some
Or it's
reason.
has shock.
Our
value.
friend
Yeah.
Austin
Yes.
taught me this interesting idea where there is a lens of consciousness. Right, there's a lens, and certain things happen that just like shoot it in a different direction. So now you can only ever see in this lens of consciousness. Like there's all of reality.
That's interesting, yeah.
There's all of reality, right?
Yeah.
But at every given time, you can only see through a certain lens of the consciousness.
Exactly.
And certain events, like, drag the lens to different situations or whatever, you know?
Wow.
Right.
You can only look at them in the immediacy of what's going on, right? And so some people understand this
Mm-hmm.
and try to shoot the lens in directions opposite of where they're trying to manipulate things.
Oh, without a doubt.
And so I think about that all the time, you know, and like what can we do to shift how do you teach people to think like that?
Yeah.
And
It's
to
difficult.
know-
Think about this for a second.
Yeah.
If Sessions is investigating the Clinton Foundation, we're not talking about Mueller investigating Trump and the Russian connection.
No,
You know,
no,
it's like
right.
We're focusing, I'm just using that as a metaphor, but we're focusing on something different. It's the law of distraction.
Yeah.
Right.
We're distracting, but it almost like we get caught on the narrative. So just by
Right.
bringing up a topic, the narrative changes, and it can be used as distraction.
Because the truth is, humans can only really pay attention to one thing at a time.
Exactly.
That's true.
Or
And we
one
live-
subject, yeah.
And we live in an age where everything is begging for our attention. And that's why I
Yeah.
was inspired by minimalism when it became a mainstream idea.
Mhm.
Because what it was telling me to do is to break down my distractions
Yeah.
and distract myself consciously with the things that I must focus on. You know,
Mhm.
like remove every distraction possible down to like if I have too many items, I need like one or two of those items and that's it.
Yeah.
Because then I'm never going to think about if I have too many items, if I have to wash them, if I have to clean them, if I have to move. You know, like that's a whole.
It's already
that's
gone from your
20,000 narratives of problems
Yeah.
that are gone because I have less physical things,
Yeah.
right?
But here's something interesting, though. This is how we defeat evil. I mean,
Yeah.
defeat the darkness in a sense. If being focused on one thing can, if we get distracted in a negative way and manipulated
Yeah.
by an authority, where we're now trapped because of their manipulation. Couldn't through meditation and
Yes.
training our mind, we move our
Oh, yeah.
consciousness into where
Well,
we
you were
could
always,
where we can
in control of
overpower
your
and we can
emotions.
become our true selves.
Yeah,
Right.
We could reach the
definitely.
top of the mountain by doing the same thing that brings us down to the bottom of the mountain.
Right.
Yeah.
Where we put that lens
Right.
is all important.
And those are brought to you, I think, by like many different types of moments, like trauma, or even like stillness, like you were saying. You were
Yeah,
sitting,
I'm gonna change the music. Keep talking.
Yeah.
you were sitting on a mountaintop,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you were like, "Whoa!" You know?
I think it's the infinitude.
right. That too. Looking into infinitude.
It's the newness too, because you had never been there before, right, Barbara?
No, that was my first
So
time
you had
ever being somewhere like
you
that.
couldn't bring your preconceived notion to the mountain.
Mm.
You couldn't bring, oh, I remember when I did this, and Aunt Martha walked up the mountain with her hair curlers. And
Right. You couldn't
Yeah.
distract yourself with the past.
You couldn't distract yourself with the past because there was no past. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you about a meditation I did. It's going to probably blow your mind.
Yeah, I'm
Please,
ready.
please do.
But I went into this deep meditation for 2.5 hours, and I got to this point where I saw green. But dude, the green that I saw, would blow-
That's what you're talking
Yeah.
about. The color thing.
it blew
I've had
away.
that before.
It was vibrant.
Mm.
It blew away any green I had ever seen before in my life. And you know how smoke comes off of fire?
Mm.
In this meditation, something was coming off the grass the way smoke comes off of fire. And I saw this intensely green. It was rolling, but I think that was my transitioning into that realm. And the only way I can explain it to you two is, you ever get a gift and you open it for the first time,
Yeah.
and that gift is new, right?
Right.
Well, where is the newness
Oh.
before the gift was ever
This
made?
is what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Wow, you bring
I
this so
saw
full
where
circle.
it lives. I saw its home.
Whoa.
All right.
I'm like, saw newness before you need to use it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like I saw where it, and I'm
Okay.
like, what the hell
Okay,
did
can we-
I just see? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Can we bring up that discussion about
Yeah.
the materiality? Or no, is
yeah.
that
Okay.
kind
So
of
this
off
is
of
something
it?
I'm thinking about. Ready? So.
All right.
So, material things are meaningless until you use them, because that's what creates the narrative in which we use them, right? Like by
Yeah.
using them, you create the narrative, or you create the narrative to use them. So now in capitalist America, corporations create narratives for our products,
Right.
right? Like they created the narrative that I need my cell phone, that's why I
Exactly.
bought
Yeah.
it, right? I actually never needed my cell phone.
Right.
Mm.
Right. So I think the creative impulse, right, is to create the tools you need to survive. So that's why you create things when you have trauma. Like
Mm.
you're having a psychological
True.
issue, you know, and so you're gonna turn to creation to
Oh.
deal with that thing. And because we live in such a weird, like, material time where actually a lot of my psychological traumas can be answered through purchasing something that someone else
Yeah.
made, right? All of a sudden that creative impulse is in the fray, so then it goes in a different direction. You know
I
what I
think
mean?
people-
You're
also-
skipping over the manifestation of your
Yeah.
own creativity and
Right.
buying into someone else's.
And see,
And then
I'm sorry.
believing that you need the because it solved that problem for you. You now believe you need that one thing every time that problem comes up,
Mm.
instead of inventing your own way to solve the problem.
yeah.
That stifles your own creativity.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why it's always about like. That's what I loved about punk as a kid, right? Like the idea of making your own clothes and like making your own CDs and like starting your own band and like
Exactly.
doing your own
Always
patches
doing
on
it
your
yourself.
clothes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That DIY mentality for me was fulfilling because it created meaning in everything I was doing.
Mhm.
Like, you know, like if I was doing it for myself, by myself, and because of that, I created a uniqueness, a certain type of power.
Mm.
That's why I wanted
It is
to pursue
empowering. I do think that it's a good response to trauma, because I feel the same exact
Yeah.
way as why I never, like, it's so funny thinking about, like, I can think about things that everyone was doing that I immediately knew I wanted to do the opposite of it because I didn't want to be associated with other people.
Right, right.
Like, I didn't like that idea of, like, being part of something that's already predicted,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so, but,
And a lot of those people are lost in the same way, trying to find some place to fit in.
yeah, you
You
know?
know?
But,
That's true. It's like they're trying to fit into. It's almost like we were finding our own identities within these groups instead of seeking out who we truly could become. Like, I feel like our true self and the self that we are, we're so influenced by the messages that we get from other people in the world and society, that who would we be without any of that?
Exactly.
You know,
that's
if you
true.
really want to go into the path, off the path, then, you know, take a walk in the woods at nighttime. With no
You gotta do
flashlight.
that.
That sounds really crazy. I'm
Then you're really going off the path.
yeah, I want to see that. I wanna see
So
that.
there's something I really want to, that I've been thinking a lot about lately that has something to do with that idea of creating a, like supporting the individual in that sense. But so I'm thinking of it in terms of like politics and how I've been thinking how the left is the new conservative in a way, or has been. Because I see it as this group that is responding to these conservative values. So like creating more open ideas in response to it. But at the same time, now they're dictating the way those things must happen,
Right.
which is hypocritical. So I'm
Right.
seeing these movements start. Great, awesome. We want to, empower people. Great, but now they're like, oh, but
But that's the downfall.
there's a right and wrong way to do this.
That's
If
the-
you're doing this, you're not included. It's very exclusionary
Right.
for
Oh,
such
right.
an open-minded, progressive idea.
Right.
That's the downfall of leftist ideology throughout history, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. It's like as soon as you try to structure it, it's like liberal ideology is about pushing through whatever the glass ceiling is at the moment. It's
Yeah.
about just that situation of just pushing through and going beyond. It's not about the consequence, not about the reason. It's just about the act of going beyond. And then
Yeah.
and that does create consequence and newness and whatever. But it also creates change. And like conservative thinking people hate change
You're
because
right.
then it shifts their power structure. Right, so that's why individualism is scary to conservative-minded
Exactly.
people, because it's like,
They see it as chaos.
Right. They see it as chaos, and also the opportunity for change occurs, right? And they
Yeah.
feel threatened. They feel that someone is threatening their structure of power or whatever. But if your structure of power is based on your own individual exploration, you're not affected by other people's individualism,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the individual in relation to the group is the only time the individual is dangerous.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
An individual amongst other individuals is only influential.
Right, because if
You know?
everybody has their own individuality, then you're respecting that person's point of view, but it doesn't necessarily form your own point of view.
So what engineers the group? That's like what I'm really thinking about. Like what during our time, and this is something my friend Austin has got me thinking a lot about. What engineers the group? Like what makes the group?
Let's think about this for this group. 'Cause that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I honestly, because people always joke that my group is a cult. You jokingly called me the leader when you came in. Like, it's funny, right? It's funny, but at the same time, like, I get that. Like,
Yeah.
I watch these documentaries about, like, cults and stuff just because I'm weird. But at the same time, it makes me wonder, like, how that happens. This idea of creating this group that's so far, like, its own thing, based in individuality, but they usually, end up killing all. It's
Well, we have
Something
the group has some things
extreme
in
happens.
common, right? And then they bond over that.
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. The problem is then when someone has an individual idea,
Mm.
one of two things happens. Either it gets shut down by the group, or the entire group feels like they have to agree with that new idea.
So strange.
And so it's either a shutting down, or the individual will be powerful enough to change the whole flow of the group.
Mm-hmm.
But there usually isn't I respect and agree with your point of view, but I still feel this. It's normally either I'm going to shift towards you or make you shift towards me. And so that this square peg fits into a round hole.
So, for instance, I've never really blocked. Like, my idea for this group is to have it, like, obviously, like, super open. And when I first made it, I definitely had, like, a lot of, like, because I'm part of other groups too. So I have people from, like, all over the world that are part of this group, which is great. But at some point, I blocked somebody only because every single time they were posting something or in response to something, it was clearly, see, like, even if your ideas are, like, the opposite of what, like, I'm posting about, because I usually post a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to be someone that's going to delete a comment or, like, make everyone turn against you. But it's when you start being aggressive that I'm like, I'm sorry, but, like, even in our description, I say, like, leave your ego out the door because I don't want that kind of... It shouldn't be a conflict.
I think aggression is okay, but all that's happening is it's just delegitimizing that person's discussion, part of the discussion, or they're removing, or like they're like derailing in this. Like emotion derails.
Like if I see any
things.
troll business, I'm sorry, but
Yeah, right.
That's
it's like petty. There's no place for that.
And
If-
it's
Sorry,
all
we're
about,
not getting
that's where
anywhere
you
with
come in as the moderator, right?
True,
Like as the
I guess.
moderator, how you handle that situation is how it's going to like develop in the future, right? So trolls are not bad
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
only in situations, right? They're actually sometimes helpful.
But my thing is, there should be a means to an end.
Yeah,
If I see a fire in the corner of the room, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
keep going, yeah, but we need to put out the fire, and you're like, why focus on the negative? Like, but it's going to eventually, you know what I'm saying? That's good. But
That's so
but
funny.
too often these trolls are just trying to cause a problem that,
Right.
for the sake of it being a problem.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's where we
right.
got to draw the line, because
Oh,
if you're just trying to
humans.
cause negativity just for the negativity's own sake,
Yeah, yeah.
you're not. Your goal is not to get to a solution. Your goal is to be like a Steve Bannon and tear
Yeah, right.
everything down.
Right.
So that's the problem.
Entertainment value.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like literally, some people can say that like their whole life is just them putting on a show until they die,
Right.
and that's all they're obsessed with is how is my show going? How are the other people enjoying it?
Yeah.
right.
I'm the star, type of thing. You know?
So weird.
And it's so weird because authentic is, people like try, or even these people with the fake compliments. Man, my thing is, why give someone a fake compliment when the truth is so much more powerful?
No, totally. No, right.
If
Yeah.
you compliment
Help me
somebody
become a better
on
person.
what they really did, like
Yeah.
these people in the nighttime community with the glamoring, you don't have to glamour someone with lies, because
Yeah.
our spiritual potential is so much higher than sometimes our earthly circumstances.
Woo!
So by just stating that truth of what your potential really is,
I really
not
believe in that.
overinflating it,
Yeah, yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying, look, yeah, maybe you weren't able to pay the rent this month, or maybe something bad happened at work, or something like that. But I know the potential of you, the truth, not a lie.
I
or
see that in
inflate-
other people.
It's
right.
so high
Yeah.
that by stating that truth, you can knock someone's socks off without ever lying.
This ties into the last discussion
Yeah.
we had in the last episode about this idea of rehabilitation and
Yes.
giving room to change, because
Yes.
that's the problem with not just stuff like that, but like anything is like we're so good at defining things and finding the problems and making like literally laying out the evidence. Like people literally like do that.
Yeah.
They love it. But whatever, aside from that. But then you're like, okay, so how do I do this? And they're like, oh, that's not you like but then the person
Wait, when you say laying out the evidence, are you saying they're trying to corner someone by showing them where they got to where
well,
they
they're
are?
just trying to lay out their idea of what their truth is.
Oh,
like,
okay.
The reality of
The
their
lead
truth.
up to it, yeah.
But like then they don't have the solution to that problem.
Because I think the solution to all
It
problems
makes them lose their authority.
are
though,
only available
in
in the
that.
moment. They're only available
Well, that
in the
too.
moment. And that's why I think all authority is a scam,
Yes.
right? Because authority projects the idea that I will take care of the problem for you, or I
Yeah.
have the answer.
Yeah.
Either or.
It doesn't lie with you.
Right,
person.
right. It's like I'm
You
taking
need
the
something else
burden of responsibility
to save
away
yourself.
from you,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, what a relief! Thank goodness."
Yeah.
But that's a scam.
Yeah.
Right, because what they're taking away from you is your free will, right?
Mhm.
Your freedom to error.
Agreed,
You know what
and
I
I
mean?
think that there has to be a shift from within you at some point. We can delay our choices, but we have to eventually cross the bridge of choice. So in other words, if I say, you know what, I'm not ready to do this, but I'll do it in a week. I'm not, and then in a week I say, we're not really ready to go
Yeah,
out
yeah,
and do this. And then we keep saying the same thing. That week
It
turns into
becomes
months,
the
and the months turns
reality.
into years. Eventually, you have to get to a point where you're ready to do this in the present moment. Because,
Right.
like I was telling Chris when you used to be at the other coffee shop, the future will count. When the future counts, it will be the present.
Make it count.
Whoa!
Think about it. When the future counts, it will be the present. So
Wow.
whatever your dream is or your goal is that you're thinking of in 8-9 years, when you have to do it, it will be the present.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So by mastering the future, you're mastering the
Right.
anxiety. But if
I
you master
totally
the
get
present,
that.
you master your own future. Because when it gets here,
Yeah.
when you do that big thing you're planning on doing,
Right.
in that moment it will be the present. It will no longer be the future. So if
Right.
you master the now, you master all nows
All
to
now.
come.
Right. That I'm
Wow.
constantly trying to
I feel so
deprogram
enlightened
people
right now.
and thinking about time for this exact reason.
Yo,
Yeah.
Like
time.
if you're too busy putting a calendar to every event
Yes.
you do, you are only limiting the potential of all the things you do.
Yes.
You are,
Right?
absolutely.
And that's why, and I do agree that it's always about chasing what feels good in the moment.
Yes.
Right? Like, if there's an event, if you're thinking, like, oh, what would make me feel good now to resolve? Right now. And if it makes you
Yeah.
feel good right now to resolve it, do it, because you know it's going to make you feel good. You already thought about that.
It'll lead to other nows where you have that spontaneousness.
Right.
And the other point we were making before is even if you are happy in 7 years
Yeah.
when you get to that goal, do you want to be in 7 years look back and say, I was miserable all the way up until today?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
you
yeah.
want the whole journey to be
Well,
good, not just the climax at the end.
That's, I think, what our
Yeah.
problem is. Like, again, time to me is a pattern.
Right.
And I think we have way too much faith in this. Probably one of the longest patterns we can recognize is time, right? Because
Yeah,
we
oh, yeah.
believe it to have existed beyond our existence as humans. Like, time has, like, things have lived before us.
Oh, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Or at least we accept that as a truth of some
Yes,
sort.
right.
So, whatever that may be. But that's the thing is, like, I think that we are so obsessed with our the predictability of time.
Yeah.
So we're
wow.
always
The
living in this
comfort of
next
time.
moment because it's like it assures us that,
We can put things off till another time.
and that's also our obsession with death at the same time too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because God forbid people do something, they're like, because I might not be here the next moment, and I feel like people always shift back and forth between like YOLO or some shit like that, right? They'll say that, but like, what does that even mean? And it's in bursts of feeling that way.
But then doesn't that mean that procrastination is almost just as bad as fear?
Oh, what's good or bad?
Because
right?
Nice.
And what's natural?
Nice.
procrastination means, you know what, I'm not going to do what you want me to now, but
Right.
I can always do it later. But,
Right.
but sometimes you never get to later because your mindset. I mean, I know people. It seems like the middle ground is disappearing. I hate to keep bringing up like nightclubs and stuff, but
No, it's okay.
I know friends that used to come to the nightclub and then they would start going just once or twice a year. Then it got to the point where they would only go to the blackout party. And I said to my friend Ernest, if you realize if you miss one blackout party, now you're going to have not gone to QXTs for 2 years because it's an annual event. Next thing you know, he misses one and he never came back again.
Right.
It like
Yeah.
completely
I'm thinking
stopped.
about that a lot too.
All
It's
right.
like the
The power
halfway
to
house
disassociate.
was just, there's no halfway house anymore. We used to go to Shannon Rose at night, see
Yeah.
the bands. Then somebody suggested, why don't we just go in the day? It'll be a little less crowded. There won't be a DJ. And I'm like, something tells me this is never going to last because there's no halfway
Yeah.
house. We start going in the day, and within 2 years, we're not going at all anymore. It's like
Right.
the slippery slope of like minimalizing. Let's make it a little easier and a little easier and a little easier, and then eventually
Yeah.
the energy has gone out of it because the energy, you need energy to make the real big thing happen,
Yeah.
not the easy thing.
Well, that's
Right.
the
Yeah.
idea of consistency, right?
Right,
And
right.
the comfortability of consistency.
Right.
So it's because,
And momentum.
because it gives you that power. It makes you feel like I already know what's going to happen.
That's the
Like
power
people-
of conservatism.
Yes.
Conservatism is like that
Consistency.
Yes.
consistency. The
But the
addiction to
problem
it.
is it goes in
The
both
addiction.
ways.
It's an addiction.
If
to
you're
it.
consistently sitting on the couch, not leaving your house, that becomes the easiest thing to do in the world. If you're consistently going to
And if
the-
there's no consequence, if no one's showing, like, I feel like a lot of people will decide to do things like that only because no one's coming up and making sure that they're not doing it.
Right. And they're not seeing the reward. They're not seeing the reward of not going there. Like you go out, I would go out to Wildwood. We would go on all these water slides. We would go on these roller coasters. We'd have a great
Yeah.
time. My friend's mom would be like, "Well, I heard there's going to be man-o-wars that are attacking people on the beach." I'm like, "What?" And she'd be like, "In earnest, your keys could fall out of your pocket when you go upside down on the roller coaster. What if you have
always say
nightmares?" And she was all this negativity. And he was like, maybe we shouldn't go. And the whole ride down there, he's like, what if something goes wrong? What if something
Oh
goes
my
wrong?
God, yeah,
We
fear,
get
yeah.
there and he has the time of his life.
Of course.
But it's all on the way that all these doubts and fears.
Oh,
and-
AKA my life
Fear.
with anxiety.
Yeah.
I
Fear.
hate anxiety.
Fear is the
Fear
very
has no
soul.
power once you get to the end zone, but it has a power to the first
See, you know what's so
99 yard
funny?
line
Wow.
up to the end zone.
I think that's a really big
Yeah.
deal with the idea of confidence as well, because growing up as someone that felt like I was an outcast where I was,
Yeah.
my method of defense was always to like be fearless so that they would stop bothering me and realize I wasn't worth it, right?
Right. Nice.
So many times I literally can remember the emotional feeling of having to be like, you know what? Maybe in a few years they won't even remember this, so I'm doing this right now or something.
almost definitely.
Always,
almost
right? I always put myself
very-
out
a
there.
big truth.
I was always weirder than they thought I was to prove
Yeah.
the point that I really didn't care. But at the same time, it was always this idea of like,
But those are good situations because
Pushing
they are
yourself.
for you.
Actually shows incredible will on your part.
Right,
But
the
see,
will to
that-
power,
yeah.
right, exactly.
But-
That other people don't have, right? And people shoot that down because they don't have it in themselves.
yeah.
The fact that you could conjure that up in the moment is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
I think
for
that you got to
sure.
think of it, things as fleeting.
Yeah.
Time
They
is
are.
fleeting.
Yes.
So I always think about that, especially when I'm like doing something in a space where I don't know anybody, or like something happens and I don't know. But I feel like people get so anxiety over situations that they don't have control over, and I
Well,
think
you-
they realize that like, just give it like tomorrow. No one. You know, it's
You
just you.
survived up till now. You know, you'll make it through the next. Think about
Yeah.
but think
But
about
yeah,
10
that's
years
the idea
ago
of
when
the
you
fear,
thought
though.
something was
Yeah.
going to be, how do I get past this?
Right?
And it was 10 years ago, and you're 10 years past it.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Here you
Yeah.
are,
That's true.
and that's the beauty of it. I think is the organic way that things change. So
And when you see the diversity in color and light and feeling and the physical manifestation of our reality in that chaotic diversity, when we patternize things, I actually believe we're cutting ourselves off from the greater
Yeah.
spectrum because we're trying to fit everything into that box.
yeah.
And therefore, anything that's outside the box, it doesn't even register.
Right.
And therefore, we're cutting ourselves off from the whole infinite diversity. I
Yeah.
actually think on a visual level, we're not seeing as many colors. How come when you're 7 years
I agree
old,
with
it
this.
seems like the sky is bluer and the
Yeah.
grass is greener at 7 than it does at 20?
Because
it
it's all you
should.
have to care about at that point.
No, it's like they're there.
You're tuned
but your
into it.
consciousness.
You know how hard it takes me
is
to enjoy
only-
myself sometimes in nature because I'm thinking about work tomorrow. I'm thinking
Right.
about something I have to do later. Or I
Exactly.
think about something somebody said to me. Like, oh my god.
That's exactly it. You're
Yeah.
you're not able to be in the present moment because you're thinking about the future, and because of that, you're actually blocking out the presentness that needs focus.
Yes.
And there is
I'm
presentness
sorry, I
that needs
didn't mean
focus.
to interrupt you. I was just very into that.
No. I'm listening. I'm following you
Yeah.
with this. I totally agree.
Some
with
of this etheric energy actually, I think we'll one day scientifically prove this, needs focus to come through. And if we're, with the ebb anxiety or depression, we are blocking it.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's why the colors actually seem faded. The full
Does that have to
spectrum
do
is
with the
there.
chakra? Like the
I-
different colors for each chakra and how certain ones are closed?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in an indirect way, when your chakras are, when your energy centers are open, and that's what chakras
Yeah.
are, you're open to the energy coming in.
Exactly, yeah.
And if you're blocking it, you're actually blocking the higher band frequencies that are coming through.
Oh.
The child isn't.
Oh, I wish I could pull this up. I probably could pull it up on there, but you might have seen it to the group that I posted maybe a few weeks ago. It's this chart and the vibrational frequencies
Yep, I saw
and the
it.
manifestations of them.
Yeah.
And down the line, the more vibrations per minute, you get things like different kind of waves, right? That you start to
Wavelengths,
experience. The minimal, I believe, is touch, sound, and then it gets like what am I thinking of? Like the different waves, and colors, and stuff.
Ultraviolet
Yeah.
and
And
Yeah,
material
so it would make
There's
sense
ultraviolet A, B, and C.
that the more waves that you can perceive, the more experience you will have.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things in society, and that's, I think they're meant to stunt that exposure
Wow.
to
Yeah,
vibration.
our brains are set up.
Fluoride,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm actually one of those weirdos that believes that fluoride does calcify your pineal gland.
You might
I
be
don't-
right. I mean, you could be right.
Like, I feel like I don't understand. You know the pineal gland and the
It's the
circadian rhythm.
Spiritual connector of the brain. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it used to be as big as a pine cone at some point, our
You
ancestry.
started shrinking.
And
Because if
now
you
it's the
don't use
size of a grain of
something,
sand. I mean, rice, not
yeah, because if you don't use something, it starts. That's the same reason why our appendix is
exactly
shrinking.
appendix.
Because
yes.
we're not, we cook food. So in the case of the appendix, it made sense. We're cooking food. It used to actually be why cavemen don't get massive disease when they eat raw meat, the appendix.
Ah.
But now that we're cooking food, we don't need it, and it's starting to shrink. But in the case of the pineal gland, as when we were before this awakening, which I actually think in January, around January 2015, this awakening started really accelerating spiritually.
15.
Because, I mean, think about it.
Huh.
Crystals were around, and spirituality has been around since the gypsies' time, right? Math has been around since the ancient
Well, yeah,
Egyptians.
But people are making
Math
the
was
connections
passed
now.
on.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I'm teaching my mom about spiritual awakening and enlightenment through crystals. She should have been teaching me,
Yeah.
and my grandma should have been teaching my mom. and my great-grandparents teaching them. Why did it skip so many generations?
The Christian
I think
values
it's
of society.
right. It challenges the Christian
Yeah.
values. I also think it goes
Satan.
beyond crystals.
Sorry.
Like I think all material things have vibrational
Yep.
qualities.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And quality and just crystals right now are the mainstream understanding of that idea. Right?
Yeah.
I think all things. That's why like some people like
Oh,
have
they all
a
do.
guitar, a certain type of guitar, and they're like, wow. You know, like,
Yeah.
like
Sound
there's a certain
energy
type of
does
power.
too. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Art
Yeah,
and
yeah.
music, again, going back to the last episode and how it's powerful because it taps you into this like literal like other dimension that we're allowed to be in
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think
The
in
idea,
particular,
you know,
It raises your
you
vibration.
can manipulate an abstract quality of reality, like
Yes.
sound or vision.
Yeah. Wow, true.
You know, it's like
yeah.
and by being able to do that and like take it outside of its typical meaning, like taking like red that I usually see in an apple and using it to like do whatever, gives it a whole nother, it pushes through that.
Colors do incite different emotions, like,
Right.
or it's all connected.
And they say in the spiritual realm, you actually see that people have had near-death experiences where they can see sound.
Oh,
They
yes,
can
synesthesia.
They can hear color.
Yeah.
They can hear what red sounds like.
Wow.
They can hear what blue sounds like.
Right.
They can see when someone's playing music. They can see the musical notes
As color.
manifest
Yeah.
as colors. It's almost like, and then when in my vision, actual emotion and feelings, it almost, and I felt like I was only hitting the tip of the iceberg. In other words, I felt there was more levels that come with this. I think there are
Yeah.
actually spiritual
It's
levels
infinite.
between us and the top level. And people talk about purgatory as being in the middle of heaven and hell. I actually think there's a whole series of levels above earth, but below what we would call heaven.
I think there's an infinite amount of levels.
So infinite
I see it
levels.
as a wave of free,
Yeah.
whatever, just going in and out.
Right, sort of. Yeah, I kind of believe in both. It's like it's all about the lens to me still. Right?
Yeah.
Like I think all is infinite,
It keeps going.
and the lens is just where we're at, and like we
Yeah.
keep putting the lens through the same like 5-6 things over
Yeah,
and
yeah,
over
Yeah,
and over
yeah, wow.
and over, and then all of a sudden
Because we feel
someone,
safe.
someone shot into the idea of shooting a rocket into space, and all of a sudden there was space, and everyone was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
It, and it
But
went
then we're
somewhere
going back
else.
to the same like
Yeah.
nonsense bullcrap. But then
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, like there might be space. Like what's that? And like we're
See, that's
and
what's
like so
yeah.
much is removed from that aspect of society's narrative. Like
That's
where
such a
is
great
space
thought. Yeah.
but it's because it made the world. Like to me, that's another one of the things that killed God, right? Like
Yes.
quote unquote, is space,
Mm.
right? Because it expanded the narrative of spirituality into science, right? Like I don't know, I do think space is real,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen it, and other than from pictures, right, and validated through other people who tell me about it.
Right.
Did any
Right.
of you guys see the Jupiter pictures I posted?
Oh,
to
that
the
was
group?
amazing. At first, I thought it was like this
It
incredible
looked like Van Gogh
artwork.
painting,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Oh,
That was
right.
amazing.
But is that even real? I was looking at it. I'm
That's
like,
what I'm
wow.
saying.
I was
That's the
almost
other
going to
part of
say
it.
that, but I didn't want to say that because I didn't want to I'm like, that looks
No.
like great artwork.
I love skepticism because I think it's interesting.
Right.
Not that I believe in it, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's interesting to even fathom different.
Different points of view. But what I was going to say with what you were saying is what happens to religion, organized religion, because I do believe in God, when we make extraterrestrial contact.
Yeah.
Because think about it, Jesus was the savior of, if you believe that happened, which may or may not have,
Yeah.
was the savior of the sins of people on the planet Earth.
Mhm.
He did not come here for an alien species on another planet. It makes us look at ourselves like heaven and hell and eternal damnation totally differently, because now there's an entire planet of alien beings where if we ever come in if this ever
Right.
happens,
Yeah.
that could not have read our Bible.
Right.
So
That's
they could not have been saved.
Of course.
And
So
that's the
That's-
degradation
yeah.
of the narrative is that possibility.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. And that's what
Exactly.
I'm agreeing with. That's also what I'm trying to point out.
when
you
that
know?
happens, it will be momentous for
And that's
the way we
always
look
the-
at ourselves.
It's always the thing when you take things out of their isolationist situation. That's the
Yeah.
difference between conservative and liberal thinking, right? Like the liberal thinker is pushing you through the isolation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For better or for worse.
Right, exactly.
You know, that's why there are some liberals who are crazy. You know, like liberal thinkers who are like, "Wow, you were insane," like whatever. But for some reason, what you're saying in this situation
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
They're
like
trying to
only in this one though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, be careful.
Like, it's just funny.
You know?
We're just all this imperfect thing trying to figure itself out constantly.
Totally.
Right.
Yep.
And that's why it's just chaos, like chaotic all the
Yeah.
time, you know?
But also
But it's
why
okay.
you must maintain control of your own narrative.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because that's when in moments of disparity you can find the light. Like in these political times, the reason why I got caught up in politics at all is like I consider myself an anarchist philosophical thinker, so therefore I try to remove myself from the belief in politics. I
Mhm.
don't believe in authority. I don't believe in like systems of government. I think most of them are trying to just subordinate me. Period. All
Yeah.
authority, I think, is mostly just trying to subordinate me.
Yeah, I agree.
But the reason why I got caught up in it is because I got addicted to the word game of politics, right?
Mm.
And now, like, sort of post that, I'm not like experiencing too much mental illness outside of depression because I know my own thoughts and narrative.
Yeah.
I read a lot of books. I designed my own thought process
You
as
can
I got
explain
older.
why you believe things.
Yeah.
Right.
If
And
there's
so,
substance
and that
behind
helped
what
me
you
create
think.
foundation. Whether or not it's true is like almost inevitable. It's almost like
See, and
irrelevant.
Almost
Yeah.
everybody can't say that.
Right,
You
no.
literally ask them about these deeper views, and they're like,
Because they borrowed them from someone who
yes.
told them they were correct.
Yes, and
that's
they
like
have
the
no deeper
huge
understanding
issue.
of it.
You guys just gave me an idea, because what if there's a way to bring conservatism, liberalism, chaos, and order together?
Yes.
And that's that when the biggest fear, I guess, with the conservatives, and we all maybe have that side to us, is we're going into the unknown, right? We're going into
Yeah.
uncharted territory we can't see. But if we paint a vision of the future
Yeah.
that we want,
Yeah.
but we have that vision very crystal clear, even though it's not in our reality now,
Mm.
but we know what goals we want.
Yeah.
We know what we want the economy to look like. We know what we want to do to end the poverty situation. We want to
Yeah.
have a spiritual awakening. We want to have.
But not everybody wants that. That's the problem. The people that
Right.
are up there don't want
But the
Right.
people who are afraid of it because it's unknown
Oh, we can
will
make it
be
happen.
less afraid of it
Yeah.
if we can paint a vivid, clear picture of what has not happened yet.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because and the manipulators will always be the manipulators.
Yes, exactly.
Like, what's her name from your generation said the players are always going to play. The manipulators are always going to manipulate.
Right.
But whatchamacallit,
So true.
the people who are afraid of something because it's unknown and it hasn't happened yet, if you paint that picture of this is what it could be like, this is how we make it
Yes.
happen, but you got to connect the dots. This is where the new water pumps will come in. This
Right.
is how
That's the difficulty
That's
of
the
it.
connecting of. That's the hard part, right? Like the idealism of situations is fun and addicting, but like that's
And
the
people
you
narrative
connect
part.
the dots
But
and you'll
people
bring the
wanna connect it
moderate
for themselves,
skeptic
though.
along.
Right,
That's
that's
the
the
problem.
narrative aspect of it. Like the connecting of the situations is the narrative,
But that's
and that's
the-
just like
yeah.
and
And that's
most
the
people are
problem.
not truly literate,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? Like most people are.
They don't have the
can
same
read,
resources to connect
right?
them.
And they can read things off Facebook and the internet, but they're not literate. And by literate, I mean like truly deeply
Understanding.
seeing the meaning behind the language.
Exactly, and that
Right.
takes work of that. And sometimes the people coming up with the ideas don't explain the dots either, and that has to be explained too.
Yeah, it
And that's
does.
where it comes down to the moderate, because this is what
Yes, it does.
Martin Luther King talked about, the moderate. And my problem with the moderate is, like, I consider we're all on the progressive side. The moderate kind of goes with the flow. So
Yes.
when progress
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah.
when progress happens, they won't. They'll say, okay, this is good. We won't stand in your way now that it happened. But before progress happens,
Ugh.
what's the other expression? When progress happens, the moderate will not bitch and complain about it. But before progress happens, they won't bitch and complain either that it's not happening.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Right.
They won't be part of the revolution, but once the revolution happens, they won't try to backtrack us.
Right.
Trump is trying to backtrack us, right?
Oh, yeah,
The
very
moderate
easily.
will accept the way things are now, but they really weren't part of the movement to get us here.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the so if you connect the dots for the moderate, then you bring the moderate along. You know, I think that's what happens, because they will not be on our enemies when we get across the finish line.
Yeah.
Right.
But they kind of are our enemies
Yeah.
before we do, because
Yes.
So-
they go with whatever the status quo is.
Yeah,
so
but that's
when,
the difficulty of it. Is I feel like a lot of these people that need that don't believe it unless they experience it.
Yes.
So all the issues that don't affect them, they never will get to because it will never affect them.
And that's why I think
Even
Yeah,
if someone shows
right.
them someone like in their face, they're just like, but I'm in my house with heat and it's not cold and I
Right.
have food and,
And
like
this-
literally,
and
it's
this
all about
brings
that.
us
Yeah.
to what I think is the crux of the political issue, like
Yes.
right here, right, is transportation, right? The ability or access to be able to transport yourself, right, is and by transporting yourself means walking outside at any time, having a car, being able to get from place
Being
to place,
somewhere.
having money to
Yeah.
get to place A to B, to even know that there's another place.
Yes.
Like, just, you know what I mean? Just, like, even knowing that there's another place to go.
Yeah.
Like, all of these elements are doorways which are controlled by the authorities around us. Like, getting into a car, even thinking that you need a car, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can't
But
just...
if people are becoming too lazy to even, I don't even say laziness because I'm not trying to down anybody,
Yeah.
but if people are becoming too comfort zone oriented to even drive more than 5
Oh,
miles
yeah.
away, then okay, you'll still use the car, but it's going to be within 5 miles.
But not
It's
even
like
that. It's like
It's getting
you can't
Or just
even
getting
go
people to
outside
not
and
be-
wander
yeah.
without police showing up and asking what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the aspect that, like, concerns me. It's
Like,
like,
God
you
forbid
can't
we're
just
walking
go...
at night without a light. And
Right.
someone's me like, why are you here?
And now with,
You
like,
can't be
things
here.
like cell phones,
That's
like,
true.
that have
And
targeted
God forbid
location.
me as a woman, forget about it.
Yeah, well,
Ugh.
anyone.
I can't do anything outside
yeah,
by
right.
myself,
Right.
surprisingly, in this country, even though all
You mean the
these concerns-
police will come after you?
No, just feeling unsafe
Oh,
being
yeah.
by myself as
Right.
a woman in
Right.
society.
Right. Well, being a
So-
man too, because I'm afraid of other men like trying to rob me.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all about the size and the situation.
But it is
Yeah.
that idea of I hope that's
Well,
still working.
Yeah.
Of being
Well,
able to
women are a
be
target.
somewhere and to like actually exist somewhere.
Right. Or to think that there is somewhere that you are allowed to be.
Yeah.
Right. So like I think a big part of like the issue of like race narratives right now, right, is that no one feels like they're allowed to be at the other person's place. So like
Yeah.
So like white people feel like they don't have a place in the Black Lives Matter narrative, and the Black Lives Matter people don't even want to be associated
Yeah.
with the other side in any way because it gives them power to be detached. Like,
But there are whites in the Black Lives Matter.
yeah,
Uh,
yes.
yeah.
I'm just talking about the people who sit at the two ends of the
Oh,
table,
okay,
right?
yeah.
Like, and these are just examples. I don't mean this as an actual criticism of the philosophies,
Right.
right? But it's like because there's no place for the white supremacists and the Black Lives
Oh,
Matter
whites.
movement,
Yeah.
there will never be a solution because there is no place for the POC in the, in the supposed white supremacist situation. There will be no solution, right? And it's that desire for the purity and the eradication of the other
Yeah.
that causes a lot of these sort of disruptions. And the idea that other people are the cause to your problems, unless it's personal, I just totally disagree with. Only on a
Right.
personal level are people the cause of your problems. And that's only because you allow them to be. You know what I mean? You allow them up. No, I mean, yeah.
No, it's
'cause you want
true.
them to be.
That's true.
Well, I think that, with some of the policies we've had in this country with discrimination and other things,
Yeah.
you can have systems and people in charge of those systems make bad decisions that
Right.
really affect people.
Yeah.
And for years, the white supremacists were ignored.
Yeah,
Until
I do believe
until this year, they were not
Well, of
really
course.
taken seriously. They shouldn't have been. Now all of a sudden, they've been given like a
They're a
microphone.
meme.
Right, because they were taken seriously, they were empowered.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
That's it. That's all it took. Right.
But
Wow.
you see this stuff. I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement. You see what's happened with people, innocent people being shot and killed, and there's a lot of good cops out there too. But some of these people, one of that Tamir Rice just had a water gun and was shot. So this, I respectfully disagree in the sense that I feel like some of these bad cops, some of these racist individuals who have power, could make much more of a difference against
Yes.
somebody than somebody who's
Yeah.
racist and in just a Klan redneck bar and they don't have any real power. It's the sheriff you really got to worry about.
All
Right,
of our
I
fingers
know.
are pointing in the wrong places. All
Totally.
Yeah.
All the time.
Totally. Right, and it's like
That's how they maintain their
and
power.
I think things are so entangled that you can't even point fingers anymore. You have
Yes.
to create something new.
Yes, and
Right.
that is what I think we should.
Be doing.
Yes, but that's what I want to shift this to.
Yes.
I'm very interested
What?
in that as
Let's
a,
do
as the
that.
last part of our discussion
What is
because
it?
I think we're tying it together slowly.
Yeah.
Is what we can do.
True. Totally. What is the action?
Like, what is the actual action? I want the solution that I'm talking.
Well, if people are comfortable with the past, and that's the big obstacle to get over, if you use examples
Yeah.
to them, look, at one point in time, we did not have an interstate highway system. We didn't have cars. We had horse and buggies. And this is how we implemented the interstate.
Yeah.
We did it state by state. At one point, Pennsylvania hadn't had Route 80 built. New Jersey did, and it started being linked together. And we use examples of how we got to where we are now, and then pivot to saying, this is how we could use this for a green economy, a green energy economy in the future, develop new ideas, new skills, new labors. Then the person doesn't feel like they're walking off a plank. They're like,
Oh,
oh, okay,
yeah.
we've gotten here before, just in the industrial age way.
So many people are so skeptical. They're
Yeah.
like, I hate it right now. Obama messed everything up. I can barely. No, but that's not true. But they want to sound loud and annoying.
What
So
I'm hoping for,
everything's so fake.
what I'm hoping for is like a new renaissance, a new pursuit
Yes.
towards knowledge in your own way,
Yeah.
and then having the confidence to define it in your own way.
Yes.
I think one of the toxic elements of the internet is the idea that we have accumulated all the knowledge that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think all knowledge is subjective and situational. Even if it's like, even if everyone agrees on this one point, right? I think that a singular point could be expanded upon, or bigger, or
Yeah.
part of a bigger point
Yes.
that no one has seen. So
Exactly.
we're too busy agreeing to even really expand onto the bigger things. So
Exactly.
I'm hoping what's going to happen is a new renaissance
Yes.
of knowledge to pursue things in a certain way. And that's why I was excited about things like VR and augmented reality, or augmented reality, or technology in general. Because to me, I was hoping that would give access to individuals to become the new Renaissance people, like to be able to have your cell phone in your backpack with your friends and just go out there.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think.
We need
Yeah.
that. We need that spiritual connection.
And then to have adventures and to experience things and whatever. But instead what's happened is a negative narrative of safety and isolationism has been created. Okay?
Yeah.
So
And attention span. I mean,
Yeah.
we're data mining through so much
that's
information
another thing.
that we're intelligent but have short
I think
attention
we're
spans.
scared. I think we think we're going too fast. We're trying to hold on to these
Yes.
cultural let's relive the 90s. Oh my god, don't lose them. Oh my god, post pre-internet this weird kind of let's but they're not it's not a bad thing, but I do think that what you're talking about
Yeah.
I don't think that we believe we can do that as a society. This idea of a
Right.
renaissance. We look back on what the Renaissance was, and we don't even have people that invent anymore. I don't know any young people like me
Right.
that are thinking of brand new ideas and are not afraid to go through with it. A lot of people have ideas, but they're like, but I still
And
want to
then
be
they
a
go
hype
work for
artist
and then
for
they
the
go
hype,
work for the corporation,
or they think that's
who
the way
has
to get
power,
to it and
right.
the money to get them there.
And then they become subverted, and then
Yes.
their skills are then bought out essentially by bigger corporations, Facebook or
And then
whatever.
it becomes
It's
the
all-
assembly line.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then they become the groupthink because they sold their soul.
I think people
to
need
the-
to start understanding that it's important to be creative without being involving yourself in the capital,
And selling yourself.
in selling
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah,
Make
yeah.
art because you want to find something in it, not because you want to put it on a wall or sell for $1 million, or make music not because you want to have all these people love you and you get to travel the world and be this all. No, you should make music because you love to make
And
music.
authenticity in the music will
Authenticity.
sell.
Of
But
art,
here's the
that's
truth:
the
it will
Renaissance.
sell if you do something that is truly authentic,
Always.
not for
Yeah,
the fame.
definitely.
You may be getting closer to the fame than if you do something
That's why I
fake.
try and
to
teach
the
my
fame.
kids all the time.
Always.
But here's what's interesting. So the comfort element is important, right? And back in the 2000s, there was a book called Applebee's America. You should look it up. It was interesting. It was about manufactured comfort. I remember back in 2004,
Good idea.
we were finally, for the first time, I was seeing something I had never seen before. You saw parks and playgrounds and all that stuff, but they were trying to make each Applebee's neighborhoody. So that the Applebee's in Clifton had the Clifton jerseys on the walls and had the Clifton
Yeah.
footballs and everything. Oh, that's Clifton High School. And oh, I know
Yeah,
her.
that's
Her
its
pictures
own-
on the wall.
Wow.
And they tried to make it
Community, though.
community environment. And so they were
Wow.
trying to manufacture comfort so that people,
Wow.
and the restaurant owner almost admitted, we were trying to bring people in other than just having the best food, having this sense of comfort environment.
Of course.
So
And then they
what-
go there for dinner every night.
Exactly. And then they're
And they
spending
know
money.
the people there.
They know-
and they know
and the
you by
pictures
first
are hung
name
on the wall.
basis. Oh, look, my daughter's over there and her cheerleading, whatever.
Exactly. It creates this
Other
community
incentives.
and comfort. Now, if the conservative or the moderate is afraid of losing all sense of comfort and stability and predictability, what if we bring that to the table? Like, we have these discussions, we bring some hot chocolate, coffee, we make
That's what I try to do with this group.
I
That's what we're
transport a little fireplace
my
in the
life
corner.
dream.
Now it's okay for you, Mr. Conservative,
Yeah.
to go outside your comfort zone. Here's a little fireplace. Like,
Yeah.
you bring the comfort element, I think all of a sudden now,
Yeah.
All right.
we like when Pope Benedict
Yeah.
was the first pope to retire in over 1,000 years. I noticed that on EWTN and these other channels, they start going, don't worry, don't worry. Now think about this psychologically. Back in the year 500, another pope did this.
Yeah.
And you could almost hear the collective sigh of relief from the conservatives. Ah, okay, another pope did this 1,000 years ago. Why did that even matter? Why did that even need to be said? It was almost
Yeah.
like, okay, because it happened before, it's okay that Benedict didn't die as pope,
Right.
that he retired as pope. It's almost like that sense of familiarity. So if
Good
we
or
want to
bad.
get to something in the future where we're breaking new ground, I think it's important to bring a comforting sense of familiarity to our argument.
It's
So that,
compassion.
Yeah.
that people feel
Bam.
like grounded in some way. Even though the idea is new, the
Yeah.
way it's being framed is not new.
And the
Yeah.
environment in which the conversation is happening.
That's my idea of a
also
safe
plays a
space.
huge part. Right. That's
To
what I'm saying.
create, not to
Right.
exclude.
And to people to express.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And expand. Yeah.
And expand.
Wow, I think that was a great discussion, guys.
I think it was. We really,
High fives all
Yeah.
around. I'm really
my
glad
brain is hurting.
Yeah,
that,
that was good.
again, a very organic discussion.
Yeah.
I was really, I'm going to have to rewatch this and think about all
Thank
the
you
things
to
we
our
talked about.
leader.
Yeah.
No, please don't ever call me that. We are all the leader to our great destiny, which is existence
Yeah,
in the
true.
eternal now.
True knowledge.
Yeah.
True knowledge.
The eternal now.
Cool.
That is true.
So thank you guys for watching, whoever watched, and I will definitely be thinking if you guys have any ideas for the next meeting, probably have another one next month if anyone's interested. And yeah, thanks guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.